This is ClueCon Weekly, the official FreeSwitch web show produced and broadcasted directly from FreeSwitch. ClueCon Weekly features live updates from the FreeSwitch developers and presentations from various pioneers of communications technology. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSwitch Solutions, the official consulting firm of the FreeSwitch open source project. Get help from the experts. Visit freeswitch.com. ClueCon, the premier technology conference for telecom, WebRTC, IoT, and all things maker. ClueCon is held every year in Chicago, Illinois, and offers an all-day hackathon and 4 days of technology-rich presentations from developers around the world. Learn more at ClueCon.com or call 877-748-CLUE.
Hello, and welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is July 5th, 2017, and we have Nils Ohlmeier from the Mozilla WebRTC team joining us today. We're very excited about this. He's going to talk about their Firefox WebRTC implementation and how it differentiates itself from Google Chrome, as well as how to reach out to the WebRTC team at Mozilla in case you need help or want to deliver feedback or have feature requests. But first, I have some announcements. We would like to thank our wonderful ClueCon 2017 sponsors. You can go see our fabulous 8-bit sponsors, including Newfies Dialer, Yealink, OnSIP, and Hyastar. And just a reminder, the exclusive ClueCon hotel pricing ends on July 17th, so take advantage of that before it's too late. You can visit our website at ClueCon.com with the hotel tab, and it has all the information you need. And while you're over there, check out the training pages. We have awesome trainings coming to ClueCon this year, including OpenSIPs, which will be taught by the wonderful guys from the OpenSIPs team, and including the SIP capture as well. So you can register for that, or you can register for the FreeSwitch training taught by our very own Brian West, with help from some of our community members. And then, are you ready for the ClueCon Coder Games? Our sponsor, Ytel, challenges you to hack their API to create your own unique user-friendly app to win a fantastic prize. Or you could take the FreeSwitch Team Challenge and win a fantastic bar-top arcade machine ready and waiting for the best implementation of the FreeSwitch Challenge. Visit ClueCon.com for more information and link to the APIs. And then if you'd like to sponsor ClueCon 2017, please reach out to us at marketing@ClueCon.com. And now let's talk to Nils. Nils, how are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me. I'm Nils Ohlmeier. I'm one of the developers at Mozilla working on WebRTC. Glad to be on the show.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. We're very excited to have you today and hear kind of what you guys have been working on and what you're up to. So if you'd like to sort of get started, we can go right
Sure.
into it.
Yeah. Maybe let's get started with like a short introduction. So like at Mozilla, the team working on WebRTC is about like 8 to 10 people. We're pretty much like distributed all around the world. I'm the only one in the Bay Area, but we have like people in Paris, in Greece, East Coast, and even some people in Taiwan. And that probably like gets us to like the how to contact us is one of the ways is we use IRC a lot for chatting in the team. So if you go into Pound Media on IRC Mozilla.org, you will probably find someone online there all the time. That's like one way to communicate us, ask for help. And then other ways are email lists. We have Dev Media. I provided the links hopefully for later. The email list is a good way to ask questions. Very often, if people report problems there, we turn it to bug reports just for better tracking. That's the easiest way. Obviously, Bugzilla is like a good way. On our end, we basically say like bugs are cheap, open bugs. Even if you just stuck, often like just the other day we had like a bug report saying like our Firefox ISTCP implementation isn't working. Turned out to be a problem on the server side of the customer. But we keep these bugs open for tracking and trying to help them and see if we can help the other party to fix the problem. That's like roughly the best ways to reach out to the Mozilla WebRTC team. And the communication for us is like super important, because we have obviously like a kind of like a roadmap, what we want to work on in the next 6 months. But it's mostly driven by what we think people want or need. And obviously that's like our own vision. And it might be off, it might not be actually what people actually want out there. So getting feedback in any way on the chat, on the mailing list, or in Bugzilla is like super important to us to decide what's actually high in demand, like what people really need, what do they want. So if you have like something, even if you see something in Bugzilla, like an existing bug report, and you think like, oh yeah, that means like it's going to be tackled. Well, the list of bugs is long, and if people like start commenting on bugs and say like, oh yeah, we desperately need this feature, that helps us like prioritizing things. So please reach out basically if you have any problems, if you need any features. We'll see what we can do. What else is there? That was like communication. I guess that gets us to where we are at with like WebRTC in general. We just finished a work week last week at Mozilla, and we basically did like a analyzing of like what's implemented in Firefox and what's in the spec, what we haven't implemented. Unfortunately, it's still like a long list, but we've like prioritized it and come up with like what we think is the best return on investment, basically. So currently, the next big thing we're working on is the transceivers. For the people who are not like super familiar with it, the history of like how things work in WebRTC. Like originally, WebRTC started with like an add stream event or function. Sorry, not an event. And then the next iteration had like add tracks and remove tracks. That's basically what Firefox implements today. And now the latest spec, basically says you're going to get like a transceiver. And the good thing about the transceiver, that's probably especially interesting to the FreeSwitch community, is that it allows way more fine-grained control of like of senders and receivers. So like one of the examples which came up not too long ago is once you do audio and video on a given on a given stream, I guess in this case, and you want to actually switch back to audio only. That's like hard right now. And with transceivers, you will have the full control over each transceiver. You can manually switch it to like, I want to do like send only, or I want to do receive only. These kinds of operations were like harder before, basically. So that's what we're working on right now. It's probably going to land like next quarter. There's currently Firefox Nightly is 56. There's going to be 57, and we're currently planning to land that in Firefox 58. And in case people are not familiar with how Firefox development works, features like this usually land in Firefox Nightly. And then every 6 weeks, we have what we call the train ride, which means like Firefox Nightly turns into a Firefox beta, and then 6 weeks later, that same version turns into Firefox release. Yeah, the transceivers will hopefully be landing in Firefox Nightly in 58, which is in August, and then from there on, it will be like 12 weeks until it hits Firefox release. Yeah, I mean, that's the other things on our list there are like working on the objects for the transport, like ICE transport object, DTLS transport object, which I think is important because so far, if you use WebRTC, you don't really have a good way to find out if something went wrong on the DTLS layer. For ICE, you already have like callbacks and stuff like that. But a scenario which we have seen a couple of times is like ICE connects, but you don't see any media flowing, and you wonder why. And it turns out to be a DTLS problem. And currently, there's no way for any app in the JavaScript to find out what's going on there. You simply see that ICE is connected, but you don't receive any media packets. Something is wrong in between. So the DTLS transport should help with that, to at least then get like an event saying like, oh, DTLS failed. Yeah, and in terms of other work, we're trying to communicate in the other direction. We try to also communicate out what we're working on via our blog, which is blog mozilla.com/WebRTC. My colleague Janivar recently made a post about what I described earlier, the different stages between AdStream and AdTrack, and now the transceivers. And another one which I did like some time ago is might be worth pointing out is debugging web RTP. So I ran into this problem where we had some freezing video issues, and for people who have tried to debug these things, because everything is encrypted with WebRTC, it's actually not that easy to figure out what's going on. Obviously, you can try to turn up the logging on both ends of a call, and just try from the log files to see what's going on. But that turned out to be like very hard. And at some point, I was like, man, I wish I could actually read this stuff in Wireshark. Wireshark will actually show you the RTP and the RTCP. In this case, I was especially interested in the RTCP. But the problem is that Wireshark will actually decode you something, but Wireshark doesn't realize that the RTCP is actually encrypted. And so it will show you something, but that's not actually the truth. And so we put into Firefox an option to write all the RTP on the sending side right before it gets before it gets encrypted. We write it into a log file, and the other way, like for any RTP or RTCP you receive, right after decryption, we write it into a log file. So you have to trigger that via like an environment variable right now. We have received some feedback that it might be nice to not only be able to do that via environment variable, but like some other way, so that people can use it on one of these services where you can like test different browser versions remotely. Apparently, environment variables are pretty hard on these, so we will look into that. But yeah, the idea is that then these like RTP packets in RAW appear in the log file, and you can like grab them out of the log file, and then with text to PCAP, you can turn them into a PCAP file and load it into Wireshark, and you will be able to see all the RTCP feedback. And for the RTP, we just log the first couple of bytes of each packet. But that should be hopefully enough to be able to figure out, okay, are there like missing RTP packets? Is the RTCP actually sending out next to say like I'm missing this packet, or is it like saying like, okay, I want a full iframe again because my decoder is completely stuck? In this case, it actually turned out that we were sending out our RTCP with the wrong SSRC numbers, so we fixed that. And then it turned out on the server side there was a problem with their RTP cache, so that explained the whole freezing of the video. But we were able to solve it with this new feature. So if you have like any requests to help the developers' life easier, again, please let us know. Email IRC Bugzilla. One of the things which is high on our radar, which is basically to come up with better tools for the developers. So far in Firefox, you only have about WebRTC, which opens like a little bit of a logging thing for WebRTC. But that's not very helpful for debugging quality issues during a call. The problem is the WebRTC team at Firefox is basically built out of experts for real-time communication, like protocols and like codecs and stuff like that. But like, we don't really have like good skilled front end people in our team. But we're definitely looking into adding some kind of graphs or like real time information which updates somehow frequently and self updates, so that like the information I was saying earlier, like the next or like RTCP feedback can be somehow rendered. We're not sure if it's going to be on about WebRTC, or maybe we can even get the developer tools team to actually integrate it into their console. But yeah, that's the stuff we're trying to work on right now. Yeah, that's pretty much what I had prepared in terms of speech, because I was said like there will be people having questions. So with that.
Yeah, we can open it up for questions. If you guys are out there watching on YouTube or listening in, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. Or if you don't want to talk, you can message them, and we'll see those and read them. So yeah, I actually have a question. If you are new to WebRTC and you don't really know where to begin, where would you recommend, from a Mozilla perspective, people start?
Well, yeah, that's a good question and a tough question. Obviously, we have on the Mozilla side, we have MDN, which is the Mozilla Developer Network, which is a pretty good reference for JavaScript related questions, and it also covers the WebRTC APIs. Unfortunately, our colleagues in that team are fighting a similar fight as we do. They're like behind the spec, basically. So sometimes their documentation is not really aligned with what we shipped in terms of the code. In general, I would actually for just playing around, getting a feel what it's about, I would actually recommend the WebRTC samples. If you just like search on the internet for WebRTC samples, that should show up. It's like on GitHub. It's a good page with lots of different demos for things you can do. The get user media part, the actual peer connection, the data channels. But once it gets into more specific like use cases, I'm actually not. That gets a little bit more tricky. I don't really think that I can recommend anything from the top of my head there. I just realized that I had on my plan here, and I forgot about it. It was like how we are different from Google Chrome. That's also a common question. Maybe let's start with like what's the same. So like what we do at Mozilla, we take the code from WebRTC.org, which is the open source code maintained by Google, and we integrate that into Firefox. Now, if you take WebRTC.org, you can choose to take everything they provide, which includes the ICE stack, the RTP stack, the signaling, and that will probably make your life a lot easier. But for the reason of really having different implementations and test interoperability, Mozilla decided to not take the full stack from WebRTC.org. So we do have our own ICE stack. It behaves different than the Google one. We have our own signaling. It also behaves different than the Google one. So we have our own security libraries that hopefully doesn't behave different than the Google one. But you can envision it as like for WebRTC itself, the WebRTC.org piece basically sits in the center and does like all the handling of RTP and the different streams or tracks. So that's basically that's the same code as Google Chrome uses. But all the other pieces around it for actually making the network connectivity, for doing the signaling, that's different between Firefox and Chrome. One of the side effects is that quite often we get like bug reports that something is not working with Firefox, but it's working with Chrome. And then once we take a look at the debug information, it turns out, well, when they tested it, they started testing it with Chrome, and they just like answer like in their SDP, for example, in a way that makes Chrome happy. And then they try it with Firefox, and Firefox is more picky about certain things and says like, no, I'm not, that this is not valid what you're trying to do there. And then people complain that Firefox is broken. But in reality, it turns out like lots of people try to take an easy path and like just do like copy and paste. And Firefox is not so happy about that. So the reason for that is that we have our own implementations, and we check certain things more carefully than Chrome does. I'm pretty sure there's also cases in the other direction. Obviously, I wouldn't hear about them. So.
Awesome. Well, I have a quick question for you as well. Going back to the security, what are your thoughts, or do you have any anything to say sort of about the autofill security issues that have come up lately from a WebRTC sort of standpoint, and trying to fix that and make sure that something that's supposed to be a convenience doesn't then become a security issue?
That's a good question. Well, we actually have the in our case there's a separate team working on the autofill, and obviously they try to do their best to be safe there. Just last week they presented what they were working on, and they try to do things like never fill in credit card data and address data at the same time. Like basically, if a form asks for all of this, then they won't fill it out. It's like, okay, we can autofill either the address or the credit card data, but not everything in one shot. And obviously, I mean, WebRTC has its own security problems. I think on the crypto side, we're like pretty good. I think everybody is like moving to the latest standards, and there's actually a lot of cooperation between Mozilla and Google, especially on these levels. Then you have like on WebRTC the famous IP leakage thing, where people are concerned about exposing their IP addresses. And that's like we understand it's like it is a problem for certain users. That's why we have implemented the draft where you can opt in to say like, oh, I don't want to disclose my private IP address. If you think that's like that's of value to someone on the other end, then basically you can opt in to not disclose that. So far, it depends. It's now tied to basically similar to what Safari does or will do once they have WebRTC support officially. That if you have given a web page the permission to access the camera and/or microphone, we assume that you're like trusting this web page, and therefore we will give out like all the IP addresses, like your local IP address, your IP address on the on your net or firewall, and the turn addresses. But if you haven't given access to the camera, then we won't give out the private IP addresses. And then, well, there's also work going on our end with the Tor people. So far, Tor disables WebRTC completely, which is probably a good decision for now, just because of the privacy concerns. But they're actively looking into like whether it would be possible to use or enable WebRTC, certain parts of WebRTC in the Tor browser. Although it's probably hard to envision that you actually want to do a real-time communication call through a Tor network. But I think it's more about enabling the camera for certain features, which is still might be useful when you're just browsing web pages to take like a profile picture and things like that. Right now, all of that is disabled just for the concern of like not risking anything.
Cool. Excellent.
Sorry, I didn't quite get that.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question real quick. Hey, Niles, do you think we're going to see the JavaScript API settle down and homogenize more between the browsers in the near term?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of standardization, I think I'm optimistic, and usually I'm not an optimist, that we will be able to finish things hopefully by the end of the year, I would say. There's really like a lot of effort going on right now to polish and like fix the last remaining problems. And that's basically what I was referring earlier to, is like the analyzing we did in terms of like, okay, what's our gap between our current implementation and that latest spec. And my understanding is that Google, for example, announced recently also to push till the end of the year to update their implementation to be more spec compliant, or be actually spec 1.0 compliant. And then you have like, for example, Safari, which actually implements already the transceivers, although they admitted that it's like not fully implemented, but like in terms of API, they're probably even like the most advanced one, which is like easy once if you're like coming late to the party. So they don't like they specifically decided to not implement the old things, but go for like the latest. So yeah, I think I'm optimistic that hopefully early next year we will have like several browsers being up to par in terms of spec.
Do you think we'll see adapter.js go away? Or
that's a good question.
You know,
I mean, for the people out there like who don't know it, like right now the recommendation is basically, if you have anything with JavaScript, basically use adapter.js, because it kind of like it's a shim which hides the differences between the different JavaScript implementations in the different browsers. I think it's probably going to stay for quite some time, because you also have now JavaScript libraries which people use, and obviously, I mean, you can take a look into them, but like they also need to update to all the new stuff, and especially to transition from the stream model or the track model to the new transceiver stuff is not going to be trivial. So I could imagine that it's going to be valuable to keep adapter.js for some time, until all the libraries have like really updated their code base and are working good with all the browsers directly natively. But yeah, eventually, I mean, there is I guess like we should all hope that adapter.js at some point becomes useless or not needed anymore, however you put it. But yeah, I would think that's probably going to stay a little bit longer than the browsers getting up to the spec.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else? Feel free to unmute yourself and ask, or if you'd like to message us in IRC, we are watching that as well. In the meantime, are there any sort of things coming up in the future that you'd sort of like to hint at, or that you can hint at or talk about?
Well, I mean, in general, there's like at Mozilla is that's like public on our blog post. There's like a big release coming out where a big part of Mozilla spends huge effort on like making Firefox a lot faster. In case you don't know, Firefox has turned on what we call multi-process, which is basically separating. There's like one process which you start your browser, and that basically runs the UI, and then the actual content space, the DOM space, runs in a separate process. And that's, for example, gives stability, right? If anything goes wrong, it crashes your tab. It doesn't crash your whole browser anymore. And Firefox is in the process of like rolling that out. That has like backward compatibility problems, especially with add-ons. And again, we're in the process of like trying to get all the add-on vendors to update their add-ons, so they're like compatible with this new model. And so so that's like the big new thing for us coming, that now, since we turned on this new feature, even though it's not turned on for 100% of the users yet, then the next big item is this all these performance improvements referred to as Project Quantum, which is really like the internal numbers I hear are like very, very promising, that we will have like a big speed improvement. So the browser Firefox should become a lot faster and snappier again, smooth scrolling over web pages and good things like that. But yeah, so that's more like on the general what's Mozilla working on, what's Firefox cooking. But yeah, for WebRTC, it's really like the biggest item ahead, as I said, are the transceivers, and we're going to watch that one carefully. As I said, that we're expecting the transition there is going to be a little bit bumpy, but we will try our best to make it as smooth as possible.
Cool. Do you have any work on device management coming up?
Yeah, I mean, we have already the enumerating the cameras. I know that enumerating the input and output audio devices is on our to-do list. I don't want to publicly promise when it's going to be available, but yeah, we're working on it next half of the year. So hopefully. There's that's going to come. There's also ongoing work on our end to in the area of like full duplex support, which is more like an internal optimization, but it should increase the audio quality in Firefox in general. Yeah, I think that's it. What I can say about that.
Wonderful. Well, do you have any last shout outs that you'd like to get out? Any information you want people to know, or where to direct them to, or anything like that?
No, I think, I mean, I hope we can distribute some links. Just maybe repeat again, like reach out to us if you have like any problems. Bugs are easy and cheap to file. Maybe the best way, actually, that's like a recommendation, is like we understand that Bugzilla is probably not the easiest to use to set all the fields and so on correctly. So it might help if you have filed a bug report and you don't see it being tackled by like WebRTC folks right away. Then you can ping us on IRC, or like even get onto the mailing list. To ask, like, okay, can someone look into this? Super important, which I haven't mentioned before, I think, is that Firefox, we no longer have the so-called Dev Edition or Firefox Aurora. So from now on, the news cycle for Firefox is going to be Firefox Nightly, Firefox Beta, and then the release. For anyone who works with WebRTC as a service, or like the FreeSwitch project or whatever, it's like super important. Please test with Firefox Nightly, because if you report problems to us with Firefox release, it's too late for us to be able to fix anything, because per our own guidelines, we can only fix security problems in Firefox release. So that basically excludes most of the problems you see around WebRTC. But if you report problems in Firefox Nightly, especially regarding like new features which we turned on or anything like that, we will jump at them and try to fix them in Firefox Nightly, so they won't basically come to release in a broken fashion. But yeah, so reach out to us, use the mailing list, Dev Media, try to come to IRC. That's usually a very good way to get help. Or file bug reports. That's like where we don't mind having like lots of duplicate bug reports. Don't be offended if we close them as duplicates, but we rather have like 2 or 3 bug reports than none. Right? So, and yeah, as I said before, for us, the communication with the developer community is really important. We don't have like any products anymore. So for us, the WebRTC is really a platform and depends a lot on like what people actually want to do with it. So that's why the communication from the community back to us is like really important for us to understand what is needed, what people want, what people need, and to drive our priorities, what we're going to tackle next.
Awesome. Well, we will be seeing you again at ClueCon during the roundtable, correct?
I think my understanding was that like we unfortunately have no time to send someone, but we can definitely work on someone attending remotely. Yeah.
Awesome. We're excited for that. Excited to hear more from you guys and see what you guys are up to. With that, I'd like to remind people that next week, if you tune in, it is our 100th ClueCon Weekly. So we're going to plan something special, so make sure to be there. And thank you, Nils, for joining us from Mozilla. Thank you for giving us an update on what you guys are doing and the work that you're doing. I really appreciate that, WebRTC stuff. So thanks. And
you've been watching ClueCon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, or visit us online. Please follow the FreeSwitch team on Twitter and Facebook by visiting our site at freeswitch.org.